Talk about football.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the We Like Football podcast. This is officially episode 5. I am, of course, Hayden Yarashunas. Joining me, as always, is the guy who is on his way to eat your pizza and curl your dumbbells, Andy Watkins. Andy, how are you, buddy?
Ah, good morrow, friend. Good morrow, fellow football likers. I I have to lead on a somber note. I want to apologize. Last week, as we were going over the playoff scenarios, I mistakenly assumed that the Rams had clinched a playoff berth. I think I saw something on the ticker that morning that said Jared Goff hoped to return for the playoffs. I mistook that to mean that they had already clinched a spot. That was my goof. I assure you we will be wrong again in the future, but we will try to own up to it when we realize. In this instance, I'm doing so. I'm coming clean. These are my confessions. I hope not to let you down again this week. We'll see how it goes.
You know what, man, knowing our many fans and how forgiving they are and how much they love us, I feel like they'll give that one a pass, at least for the time being. Last week was an awesome week to not have a real job. And I joke about that. I am a teacher. The math behind me is not just because I like doing math in my free time. I am a teacher, but my students were on their winter break last week. So I got to kind of sit around and just watch all of the football, any bowl game that I want to go back and watch old games. It was a fantastic week. I hope yours was just as good.
Um, no complaints on my end. I did do plenty of lazing about, plenty of football watching. Uh, of course, I took in much of week 17, as did you, but now being playoff time, we do want to steer more towards what we have to look forward to this coming week than to dwell on the past, the week that was, I should say. We are going to take a look at week 17. I'll take the reins here if you don't mind, buddy. We got 4 games we want to look at quick. I'll lead with one probably unsurprising to most, the Pittsburgh Steelers squaring off with the Cleveland Browns. Um, the Steelers fell to the Browns 22-24. It was not unexpected. Pittsburgh sat the majority of their starters. They sat, not that I shouldn't say the majority, they sat a good chunk of them, though. They sat each of their captains on both sides of the ball. Big Ben sat, Pouncey, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. That's in addition to guys like Joe Hayden, Robert Spillane, just off the top of my head, that sat out that game. Pittsburgh largely played well with the cast they had at hand. Mason Rudolph threw for over 300 yards, 2 scores. He threw a couple nice deep balls, honestly, looked better than he did last year. All their young skill players, James Conner, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Juju contributed. The defense, spearheaded largely by backups, came up with 4 sacks. I just want to note here that the Steelers led the league with 56 quarterback takedowns this year, 73 consecutive games with a sack, which is the longest streak since the NFL began recording the stat in 1982. But again, it was for naught. I shouldn't be waxing poetic about the Steelers this whole time because the Browns were the team that emerged victorious, earned a playoff spot for the first time since 2002 when they squared off against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they'll be meeting again in the wild card round this week. We'll talk about that matchup a little further when we get there. But again, as I said, we don't want to dwell on the week that was. So the other game that I took in this week was the game of the week at 4 o'clock, the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams, what was essentially a play-in game between 2 NFC West rivals. Kind of a fun game to watch because it felt more like a weird MAC game, just given the 2 quarterbacks playing in that one. The Rams were without Jared Goff, started John Wolford out of Wake Forest. And then on the Cardinals side, Kyler Murray was banged up. He was kind of in and out during the game. So they relied largely on little-known Chris Streveler. Hayden, if you saw any of that game, I'm sure you liked him because he had that badass half sleeve.
He sounds awesome. I did not get a chance to see that. It was not televised in the Baltimore area, but I mean, any dude who goes to South Dakota and plays for my favorite Canadian football team, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, is okay in my book.
Yeah, this game wasn't exactly replete with offensive fireworks, predictably so, given the Wolford versus Streveler battle, not exactly on par with the Manning-Brady duels of past. John Wolford, 22 of 38, 231 yards. He threw a pick on the very first play from scrimmage for the Rams, almost hilariously so, just telegraphed terrible ball that we thought might have been, the just a harbinger of horrible outing to come. He recovered nicely, showed some wheels, 6 carries, 56 yards, did enough for the Rams to emerge victorious, earn a playoff spot. Streveler on the opposite side, I guess he matched Wolford blow for blow. That 11 of 16, 105 yards, a touchdown and 1 pick. Troy Hill, an 84-yard pick six in the fourth quarter that kind of stuck the nail in the Cardinals season, I should say. Disappointingly, this may have been Larry Fitzgerald's last game, and he had to sit it out. We'll see ultimately what he decides. That's just, something worth noting. If this was the end for Larry Legend, phenomenal career, goes without saying. First ballot Hall of Famer, just all-time great. But the Rams emerged victorious here, got a playoff spot. We'll talk about their matchup later on. I know there's a few games you wanted to look at this week as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just kind of from the games that you talked about also, the Cardinals were kind of in the thick of things kind of all year, had their ups and their downs. But like you mentioned, Larry Fitz, one of the best to do it. Certainly passing the torch to somebody who's capable and going to be walking into Canton, in my opinion, in DeAndre Hopkins at some point. But they're set up for success there in Arizona in a year or two. They're still going to be in this kind of same conversation about the playoffs and around this time of year. Also, to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Browns, the real winner was Mason Rudolph for leaving with his entire skull this time. There was no dents, there was no deformities. It was nice to see at the end of the game that Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett were able to kind of get together. I would love a hot mic in there just to kind of hear the conversation. Like, hey, man, I know I assaulted you with a deadly weapon. I tried to kill you. The past is the past, man. Let's just.
Sorry about your head, bro.
Yeah. Didn't mean things happen. Yeah. So the games that I saw here in that 4:00 spot were we got the Jaguars and the Colts. We also got the Packers and the Bears, but then we got bonus coverage of the end of the Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans game. Wildly entertaining finish towards the end there. Notable from that game, Derrick Henry passed Chris Johnson for the Tennessee Titans single season rushing record with Chris Johnson at 2,006 yards. Derrick Henry eclipsed that with his 250-yard rushing performance and 2 touchdowns. We've talked about it, and we will talk about the Titans kind of moving forward in the playoffs and how he's going to kind of be the bell cow there and the reason that the Titans are able to do anything in the playoffs that they are. Steven Gostkowski was out. He was one of like a million players, it seemed like, out with COVID this week. I mean, the list of COVID, the people on the COVID list was just absurdly long. But in comes Sam Sloman, the kicker, to hit a 37-yard field goal to win the game with a single doink as opposed to a double doink, kind of doinked it in off of the upright. A lot of fun to see kind of there towards the end. It looked like we were going to get more football. I saw on your Facebook, you posted that we were going to get more football, and apparently Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown heard you, right? Because they connect on a deep pass. A.J. Brown in that game went 10 receptions for 151 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill was 18 for 27, 216 yards and 1 touchdown. And like I mentioned, with Derrick Henry rushing for 250, now owns the Titans single season rushing record. So kudos to King Henry. Also, the Titans came away from that game with 4 sacks. In case anybody didn't know, there was a final Sunday night football game 256 out of 256, which is apparently a ceremony that's just bringing everything together. It's a culmination of the season. There should be feel-good stories. Everybody should be happy and participate to the fullest. And then we got the Washington football team beating the Philadelphia Eagles 22-14. 22-14, not 22-14. So the story that is everywhere. The Eagles pulled Jalen Hurts to start the fourth quarter, put in Nate Sudfeld, who I hadn't seen in quite some time play any sort of meaningful football for sure. I forgot how tall and lanky he is. That's like if somebody stretched out Nick Foles a little bit more. That dude is so tall and so lanky, looks super awkward. Kind of the outcry from fans and the reaction from the media is that Philadelphia should be ashamed of themselves. They tarnished the great game of football. There was no integrity. They should be stripped of a draft pick. They should be fined. They should be hung out in the street for everybody to see. They should have to wear a scarlet letter and have shame brought on their families' names. So what was nice that came out of this, I don't even need to, do I even need to say anything about the actual game? The Washington football team won the NFC East. They're going to be hosting the Buccaneers next week. There was stats in the game. It doesn't matter. What was nice that came out of this was just the amount of football purists. I never realized how many people really care about the true integrity of the game and really just protecting it, from media members to fans to players. Everybody is just so concerned with protecting the integrity of the game. Honestly, it might not have been Doug Peterson's worst performance of the year. He had a shit show coming out of the bye week against New York, who honestly, that was where most of the criticism came from, was the New York Giants, their players, their fan base, their coach. Just
lest we forget, went 6-10 this year.
Yeah, and needed some help from the Philadelphia Eagles, who were very, very obviously tanking to go into that game. The amount of people that they had sitting that weren't even dressed to play kind of like painted that picture. But then with the Eagles being down 3 points going into the fourth quarter when they pulled Jalen Hurts, it just looked like the ultimate FU to football and all of the integrity for the football gods. What I think is amazing is it really was the proper conclusion to the Philadelphia Eagles season. Okay. Now, I know we don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to get through this kind of quickly.
Take your time.
We are going to flex our intellectual muscle here for a second. Okay. So Andy and I consider ourselves to be fairly educated. Andy has a degree from the Pennsylvania State University. I'm currently working on a master's. So we've been around the block with school. So at the end of the game, I found myself just sitting on my couch and laughing and realizing what I had just witnessed was a Shakespearean comedy. Now, let me sort of paint the picture for you. There are 4 distinct characteristics of Shakespearean comedy. One of them is comedy through language. So in the Philadelphia Eagles season this year, Howie had commented about the Philadelphia Eagles being a quarterback factory. Howie Roseman also justified the Jalen Hurts pick by saying that Nate Sudfeld was not going to be a backup quarterback in 2021 and that they needed to solidify the backup position. Howie Roseman also said that Carson Wentz liked the Jalen Hurts pick and was ecstatic about it. He was excited to see a young guy come in. And then, of course, Carson Wentz repeatedly saying that he was going to keep playing his game after turnover, being statistically the worst quarterback in the league. So that's one element of a Shakespearean comedy that was the Philadelphia Eagles season. Another one, complex plots. So, of course, we got the benching of Carson Wentz after being statistically, again, the worst quarterback in the National Football League. Zach Ertz whining about his contract, wanting more money, and then playing horrendously anytime that he got on the field. And then, of course, over the offseason with Jalen Reagor being taken over Justin Jefferson in the draft, those were some complex plots, I would say. Right? So we're 2 for 2 with the Shakespearean comedy. The next one, mistaken identities, is also another component of Shakespearean comedy. So Travis Fulgham, dude was a baller for like 3 weeks and then just fell off the face of the earth. Carson Wentz, a one-time MVP favorite, fell off the face of the earth. Doug Peterson's offense once looked competent, not anymore. And the final element of a Shakespearean comedy is love. This one was a little bit harder for me to dig up here. But then seeing Wentz and Ertz and Jason Kelce sitting on the sideline after the game, it's a picture that's been sort of circulating out there, kind of commemorating the end of an era. It seems like they love their time being here. The Sunday night football game was absolutely the perfect bow to put on the Shakespearean comedy that was the Eagles 4-11-1 2020 football season. Go ahead and take it right from there.
I thought I maybe had words to add a few minutes ago. I don't think there's anything.
Are you as outraged by Jalen Hurts being pulled for Nate Sudfeld going into the fourth quarter as the media is?
No, certainly not. I think everybody it's an organizational thing. If you want to play to win the ball game, play to win the ball game. If you want to play for draft position, if you would prefer the 6th pick to the 9th pick, which they showed was the difference in winning and losing that game for the Eagles, that's understandable as well. Play for the 6th pick, pull Jalen Hurts. I understand where, from a fan standpoint, from a competitor standpoint, it can be frustrating, irritating, but the Giants, if you're relying on help to get into the postseason in Week 17, you probably don't deserve to be there. Is the truth of the matter. I'm not bent out of shape about it. Similarly, Jets fans a few weeks ago were mad at their team for winning. Now we're here 2 weeks later. People are mad at the Eagles for losing. I'm not saying those are the same people. Some fall on one side of the coin, some fall on the other, but you're not going to please everybody is the long and short of it, I guess.
No, what I took from it was the Eagles put themselves in a win-win position. If Nate Sudfeld somehow goes in and magically wins the game, it's an awesome story to talk about. If he loses, you get 3 picks higher in the
draft. I think we've pontificated on the Eagles as much as your little heart could bear. We'll move on. For now, I'm sure we'll be back around for whatever dramatics they have for us in the offseason. I look forward to that. But moving on, before we jump into our playoff preview, just a few statistics I pulled I thought were interesting. I just wanted to really mention them, maybe see, some folks that overlooked some pretty impressive years from some household names, some guys who maybe flew a little more under the radar. So I'm just going to rattle these off. If you have any reaction, go ahead. If not, I'll just move on to the next. Number 1 here, Tom Brady threw for 4,633 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions in 2020. At 43 years old, that's astounding.
Pretty damn impressive.
Number 2, another impressive passer, Deshaun Watson led the league with 4,823 passing yards. Mind you, that was without DeAndre Hopkins. Watson didn't look any worse for wear in 2020.
Also pretty damn impressive.
Derrick King Henry led the league with 2,027 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns. I'll save you. Pretty impressive.
Pretty damn impressive, if you ask me. Can I read the next one?
Please.
Justin Jefferson records the most receiving yards for a rookie in the Super Bowl era with 1,400 yards on the dot. All time, he is now 2nd, and this is including football before the Super Bowl era, 73 yards behind everybody's favorite Bull Gorman, who set the record for most rookie receiving yards in 1960. That was, of course, before the Super Bowl era, so that's why Justin Jefferson has the record in the Super Bowl era. Still one of my football crushes.
And Jalen Reagor had 396 yards, which isn't bad. Another impressive rookie, Jonathan Taylor, was 3rd in the NFL with 1,169 rushing yards this year. Strong season from the Wisconsin product. Another impressive rusher I wanted to note here, because I feel like people have maybe slept on how good he's been. Lamar Jackson ran for 1,005 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. As you noted, the first quarterback to run for over 1,000 yards in season twice, 2 consecutive seasons for Lamar Jackson. I'm sure he'll do it again. Next here on the list, Davante Adams continues to be an anomaly. 18 receiving touchdowns this year. It helps playing with Aaron Rodgers, but boy, howdy, somebody's got to make room in the end zone, and nobody does it like Davante Adams. Year in, year out, the guy finds the end zone. Another wide receiver had a great year. Brandon Cooks now has 1,000-yard seasons with 4 different teams. The Saints, the Rams, the Patriots, and now the Texans. Brandon Cooks continues to thrive regardless of who his quarterback is. One wonders why he's been moved around so often with what's been such a strong career thus far. Next here on my list, 2 guys probably flew under the radar for most. Hassan Reddick, Arizona Cardinals, and Leonard Floyd, now of the Los Angeles Rams, 2 first-round edge rushers, kind of regarded as busts over the past few years. Both over double-digit sacks in 2020. Hassan Reddick with 12.5. Leonard Floyd complimented Aaron Donald nicely for that Rams defense with 10.5 of his own. Both guys, good years. Another strong pass rusher, kind of surprisingly because he doesn't play what you think of as a traditional pass rushing, edge rushing position. Jamal Adams, safety, Seattle Seahawks, 9.5 sacks this year. That is, whew. We talked about them losing Jadeveon Clowney earlier, a few sods ago, I should say. We talked about their pass rush maybe lagging behind. They found a way to inject some punch into that pass rush, and it's from less than predictable source in Jamal Adams. Just an anomaly from the safety position. Another Seahawk I thought worth mentioning here. This is the last one I have. Seattle's kicker, Jason Myers, went a perfect 24 of 24 on his field goal attempts this year. That's pretty impressive. It does deserve noting, however, that he did miss on 4 extra points.
Yeah, but he got the ones that were worth more points. It's like hitting threes instead of layups. You're getting more points for your team. Still impressive to go perfect at anything in a season is impressive for Jason Myers. Yeah, those were kind of the quick notes, the stuff that might have been overlooked. Obviously, there was some stuff in there that everybody kind of knew about, but was worth mentioning to kind of wrap up the 2020 season, which in all honesty, we were lucky to be able to finish as fairly unscathed as we were with the present circumstances in the world around us. But since we finished up the regular season, it is now time for the playoffs. This weekend upcoming, we get 2 days of triple headers for the first time ever with the wild card games. So to start on Saturday, the first game on the slate is the number 7 Indianapolis Colts heading to Buffalo. That game's going to be on CBS. I took the time earlier to look up some weather. Unfortunately, there's not anything that's really like wild. Even in Seattle, there's only chances of rain, just to see if there was going to be anything that was gonna impact the game or anything like that. It is worth noting that in Buffalo this weekend, they are allowing up to 6,700 fans in the stands. It's 6,200 fans and then 500 guests for their players. So that is worth noting. Buffalo fans are definitely passionate about their football team. They are definitely passionate about breaking tables in the parking lot. So it should be a fun atmosphere up in Buffalo this weekend.
Oh yeah, to say the least. Bills fans, I think 6,000 of them will sound like 60,000 of them, especially if, they come out hot the way we know they can, the way they've done over the past few weeks. I noted in here the Bills closed the year on a 6-game win streak. They won every single one of those games by double digits. No team is as hot as the Bills headed into the playoffs. Over the past 3 weeks, they've been even more dominant. Just to note here, they beat the Broncos 48-19, waxed the Patriots the following week 38-9. Week after that, the Dolphins 56-26. The Bills are winning by 30. They are a wagon like we haven't seen in some time. This is quite the step up in competition. The Colts are no slouch, and the Colts, if they play their game to the best of their ability, if they kind of ride Jonathan Taylor, that road grading O-line against the middle of the pack Bills run defense, they could kind of play ball control, keep away offense, and maybe have a chance. But I think the Bills just look to be a buzzsaw right now. I think they're going to come out hot. I think they're going to punch the Colts in the mouth and probably win this one going away a couple scores.
Yeah, we had talked about the Colts, and we were both high on the Colts because of the run game that you mentioned with Jonathan Taylor, and his rookie season has been outstanding. I know we talk about James Robinson in Jacksonville, but Jonathan Taylor has been outstanding this year. You mentioned that the Bills are rolling. It's worth noting that they pulled Josh Allen at halftime against the Miami Dolphins last week. Just kind of a testament to how well they are rolling and in gear. We've talked about Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and just the chemistry they have and how good they've been. It's also worth noting that the Bills defense is 3rd in the league with takeaways. They have 26, kind of ending the regular season with 26 takeaways going in to the postseason. So certainly no slouch on the other side of the ball either. Indianapolis's, I guess, best shot would be to, like you mentioned, ride Jonathan Taylor, hand the ball off, grind out some clock. It essentially just keep the Bills off the field on offense. The longer you can keep Josh Allen off the field, the less he can hurt you.
Yeah, and that's not even that's merely a testament to how strong Buffalo is offensively. The Colts do have a pretty good defense this year. We've mentioned numerous times, they've got Darius Leonard, Justin Houston, DeForest Buckner. They're not devoid of playmakers. Danico Autry, another nice player. just to name a few. But the Bills are, as I said, a buzzsaw offensively. They are third in the league in passing. Josh Allen has a litany of frightening weapons. Stephon Diggs is the headliner, but Cole Beasley was nearly 1,000-yard guy. John Brown is back and healthy, making plays. Isaiah McKenzie had 2 receiving scores and a long return. Their weaponry is deadly, as I think we'll both agree. The Colts, they have the kind of offense, and they have the kind of team where if everybody's hitting on all cylinders, they could maybe upset Buffalo, but I just can't see it. So I guess we're both in agreement there. The Bills probably win this one, cover whatever the spread might be.
That was going to kind of be my prediction, and it for the Colts, I believe it was either go to Buffalo or have Baltimore come to town. Also, not a slouch, but with Tennessee kind of winning that game that I mentioned before against Houston, that's what got the Colts to go to Buffalo. Yeah, I would predict that the Buffalo Bills win and move on to the second round of the playoffs. If I was a betting man, I don't make enough money to bet, but if I was, I absolutely would take the Bills here.
Regardless, great way to start off the playoff slate. Looking forward to that one. The next one should be interesting as well. The number 6 seed Los Angeles Rams head to the division rival NFC West champion Seattle Seahawks. That game will be on Fox at 4:40. The weather they're calling for is going to be 44 degrees with rain showers. It always rains in Seattle, nothing new. Seahawks lead the all-time series 25-21. These teams split this year. The Rams beat Seattle 23-16 in November. Lost to Seattle 20-9 just a few weeks ago just a week ago after Christmas. Worth noting, because you tend to think of the Seahawks as being the class of the NFC West since Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson came to town. Since Sean McVay showed up in LA, the Rams actually do have a 5-3 edge in the series against Seattle. What are you looking for in this game? What do you expect from this game?
Yep. So this was one, and I was trying to look up if there was going to be any fans at CityLink Field. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. That's something that the Seattle Seahawks thrive off of, notorious for the 12th man there with the crowd. Either way, I mean, of course, it's not a long trip, but anytime that you're playing away, there is a little bit of home field advantage, I guess. And like you mentioned, it always rains in Seattle. That might not be a bad thing with Sean McVay's offense and what the Rams try to do on the offensive side of the football. It's worth noting that Seattle's pass defense is not very good. You have the word putrid in here, which kind of paints the picture for how we feel about them. They've allowed 4,560 yards to opposing passers, which is very much not good. I think what it might come down to is, will the Seahawks linebackers be able to cover underneath and in intermediate routes, right? So I mentioned before, Sean McVay's offense is kind of a run first play action type of offense, where everything that he does as far as like his bootlegs and actions like that has a shallow route and an intermediate route, and they could kind of methodically drive down the field just with those play actions and bootlegs like that. So will the Seahawks be able to defend that? It's worth noting that the Seahawks defense was 31st in covering passes over the middle of the field this year, and 27th at covering routes under 10 yards. Like I mentioned, that's kind of that intermediate and shallow route. It's attacking that area of the field. So I think it'll come down to if Seattle is sort of able to cover that part of the field. You mentioned with Jamal Adams too, kind of having so much success with sacks. You got to wonder, is he going to play as close to the line of scrimmage? Is he going to kind of sit back a little bit and kind of play more of a true safety role? It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that same thing as you mentioned it. It got. I was kind of thinking the same. Is that a detriment? Jamal Adams obviously is a force as a pass rusher, as I said, an anomaly from the safety position. But playing him that close to the line of scrimmage does, have to be. I would imagine do more harm than good at times, and Seattle's pass D might be a testament to that. It is kind of surprising given the talent in the linebacking core: Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, KJ Wright. It's not a bad group, but all year long, they've been really victimized over the middle. That is one of many interesting matchups in this game. Seattle's offensive line against a deadly Rams pass rush. That's interesting as well. Russell Wilson was sacked 47 times this year. We know typically Seattle's never put a great O-line around him. He typically is one of the more sacked quarterbacks in the league. He does well to protect himself, but he is in for it against a Rams team that put up 53 sacks this year. Deadly pass rush, Leonard Floyd, Morgan Fox, Michael Brockers, Aaron Donald. Woo!
Aaron Donald.
um, Again, just another interesting matchup. DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey. DK Metcalf, we both waxed poetic about numerous times on this show already. However, Jalen Ramsey in 2 matchups has largely held him in check. I can't speak for how often these two went one-on-one. I would imagine they saw their fair share of each other and will do so again this week. But in 2 matchups against the Rams, DK Metcalf had just 12 catches for 87 yards. So obviously a testament to how good the Rams are defensively to put the clamps on him twice. They'll try to do so again this week.
Yeah, there's a reason that you got to bring a Brinks truck when you want to pay Jalen Ramsey. He's that dude that's going to shut down your number 1 receiver. It'll be interesting to see what their other receivers are sort of able to do if Jalen Ramsey is able to win that one-on-one matchup that we're assuming is going to take place. You have in here both teams have a top 12 rushing offense and top 5 rushing defenses. So both kind of playing strength on strength in that area. I don't know if we mentioned it before also, but Jared Goff's status is sort of uncertain. He did have surgery on a broken thumb, or a thumb injury, I guess I should say. But it's notable that he looked good in warmups kind of last week. Obviously was not going to play last week, but it's promising for what's to come. At least the Rams hope. I don't think that John Wolford did enough to create a quarterback controversy for the playoffs. You would kind of just think that he was a fill-in guy, and that if Jared Goff is ready to go, he's going to get the nod.
Yeah, I would think even if Jared Goff is almost ready to go, they'll probably pump him full of something and get him out there. He hasn't been great this year, but far and away their best chance to make any noise in the postseason. They do match up relatively well with Seattle. I think this is going to be a game that's going to go down to the wire, and I think it'll be lower scoring, at least given what we're used to. 2 times this year, 23-16, 20-9. I think we're looking at one of those high teens, low 20 games. I don't know which team I favor. I think given McVay's edge over Pete Carroll and the Seahawks since taking over, I actually kind of favor the Rams. I think their defense can kind of tee off. Seattle hasn't looked their best over the past month or so. I think in this one I'm going to favor the Rams to get the upset and advance on to the divisional round.
Yep. So I think it might be fun if we predict these games and kind of keep score, and then maybe play for a 6-pack or something as they come up, because I'm going to disagree with you here. I'm going to take the home team, the Seattle Seahawks. Again, no fans in the stands, but CenturyLink Field. Man, I have a feeling there's nothing else besides that. If you are actually betting on this game, please don't bet on it because I said that they were going to win. There's not a whole lot to back that up. I just got a feeling. So the nightcap on Saturday, number 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go into Washington or Landover, Maryland, to face the Washington football team. The weather is going to be fine. Almost 30 degrees, partly cloudy, nothing really to write home about. It is notable that coming off the field and maybe in some media, Chase Young mentioned that he wants Tom Brady. That's been a headline. It is also worth noting that Tom Brady holds the record for most quarterback playoff wins with 30 of them, and has started the most playoff games with 41 total games. This might be a tough task for the Washington football team.
Yeah, to say the least. They're going against the playoff quarterback. The playoffs run through Tom Brady until he says otherwise, until he gives us definitive proof. 1 year, 1 pick six doesn't change that, especially given the year Brady's had. The Buccaneers are hitting on all cylinders. They're on a 4-game win streak. They're as hot can be. They've scored 122 points in their last 3 games, just a hair over 40 a game. For the mathematicians among us, I know you probably didn't know that. I'll help you out. No worries. the
Appreciate that. Yep, appreciate it.
the 7-9 Washington football team doesn't seem like the foe that's going to topple Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I do have some notes in here. I do think the upset is worth considering. I think there is a recipe for success for the Washington football team. Um, I think some things have to go in their favor. Some luck, some bounces have to go in their favor in terms of takeaways and whatnot. But the Washington football team does do an excellent job of generating pressure. They have 47 sacks this year. We know they've got some horses in the front seven: Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. Um, Obviously a formidable group. Um, Tom Brady, the Buccaneers, at any time if they've struggled this year, it seems to be when teams were generating pressure on Brady. In losses this year, of which there were 5 for the Buccaneers, he was sacked 11 times. In their 11 wins, he was sacked just 10 times, so not even once a game, as opposed to a hair over twice in losses. And it's, I would say, over his career, that seems to be kind of, if there is anything resembling a knock on Brady, or at least some kind of blueprint for how to beat him, it does seem to be generating pressure, especially interior pressure. Guys like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne can certainly do that. I think if the football team can make him uncomfortable, knock him off his spot, maybe if they can get a takeaway or two and get out to a lead, they can make things uncomfortable. But again, that's just my recipe for success. I'm by no means predicting it. Tom Brady will roll, probably win this game by multiple scores.
Yeah, no, the Washington football team's strength of that team is obviously their defensive line. A weakness is the offense. I mean, they haven't been able to put it together. And I know there was the Dwayne Haskins fiasco, and he was going and throwing dollars at strippers after games without a mask during COVID, and kind of resembled a young Jamarcus Russell, sort of, with a bunch of talent, but just super immature and wasn't able to put in the work. Last week, or excuse me, 2 days ago, but I guess last week in the season, the Washington football team only put up 248 yards against the Eagles, who again didn't really play a whole lot of people. Even if they did, they didn't have a whole lot of people to play. But and Tampa Bay's defense finished the season with 48 sacks, 15 interceptions, 15 forced fumbles. The recipe is correct. Get pressure on Tom Brady. Don't let him utilize the weapons that he has everywhere around him. It's just such a tall task, man. Good for the Washington football team. Good for Ron Rivera, who battled cancer, who had to have chemotherapy at halftime of games. Good for Alex Smith, who's walking again and playing football again after his gruesome leg injury and the 19 surgeries. It seems like it's going to be one and done for the Washington football team, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will advance.
Yeah, it'd be a great story. We all know that, but Tom Brady has crushed loftier hopes and dreams than this one. Alex Smith, Ron Rivera, Chase Young, good show. I do think they're set up for some future success on the backs of at least a few, if not all of those guys. But Tom Brady, the Bucs will roll. That'll cap off our Saturday slate, move us on to Sunday, the second day of the super wild card weekend doubleheader. We've got plenty to look forward to on Sunday as well. Leading off with the number 5 seed Baltimore Ravens against the number 4 seeded Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. These two have met a few times in the recent past, and we know there's always going to be fireworks. The Titans actually beat Baltimore in overtime 30-24 this past November. Great game. I have a note in here. You might recall there was a pregame skirmish, a ballyhoo, a brouhaha, a Donnybrook between.
Yes. I was hoping you'd get the Donnybrook in there. That's what I was going to throw in there. I love it. Yes, absolutely. Between Malcolm Butler and John Harbaugh. Absolutely, buddy. Well done. Good radio. Keep it going.
That's good scrimshaw. Yes. Malcolm Butler and John Harbaugh had a little Donnybrook over some posturing on the midfield stripe by Mr. Butler. My team, of course, is not in the mood for such dramatics. They just lace up the cleats, tighten the chin strap, buckle the helmet, play football the way we like it. But not the Ravens and the Titans. They're more for dramatics, fireworks, if you will. But that has led to a lot of fun for the talking heads and a lot of fun for the fans. Titans, Baltimore, going to be a great smash mouth drag out fight between two former AFC Central foes. If you recall those days when it was a 6-team division, also featuring the North was a 6-team division, also featuring the Titans and the Jags. Back when guys like Eddie George and Ray Lewis were spearheading this rivalry. So now we'll see what comes with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson leading the way on both sides.
Yeah, spearheading is a good way to put it with the way that the old rules were. Not anymore now with targeting. No, this is going to be a fun game to watch. These are two of the best running teams in the National Football League. Combined, they had over 5,700 rushing yards and 50 touchdowns, 50 rushing touchdowns in 2020. It's worth noting that the away team or the road team has won each of the last 4 meetings. They've met 4 times. Remember, the Ravens are not super old, and this is obviously not going back to pre-Baltimore, more Ravens times. But with the Ravens on the road, we'll see if that trend continues. The Titans are allowing just under 15,000 fans, but they have had fans in their stands for a while. I had to look this up, but I believe it is still just under 15,000 fans. The weather is going to be fine, and it looks like it's going to actually be a beautiful day. 45 degrees and cloudy. It's a great day for football. So excited to kind of see the fireworks here and just the run at each other. You mentioned in the last game the recipe to kind of stop Tom Brady. There is a recipe to stop the Ravens, so to speak. This season, the Ravens are 1-4 when Lamar Jackson attempts 28 or more passes in a game. So this year, Tennessee, he threw 29 passes. New England, he threw 34 passes. Pittsburgh, he threw 28. Cincinnati, he threw 37. And Kansas City, he threw 28. The Cincinnati game was the win, right? But if you can make Lamar Jackson sit back in the pocket and have to sling the Duke around the field, you're going to be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how the Titans wound up winning the postseason matchup last year. They got out to a big lead, and then they forced the Ravens to play a game that is not necessarily their style. Lamar Jackson, we know, is gifted as a passer. But when they're really firing on all cylinders, it's when he is just as much a threat on the ground as he is with his arm. I think really that's all the Ravens need to do is hang tight with them and stick to their game. And they should be able to exercise the demons of the past few matchups and get the win over the Titans, get Lamar Jackson off the playoff schneid. I'm favoring Baltimore in this one. They're hot. They've won 5 in a row. Not against a murderer's row of competition, mind you. The only winning team in that stretch was the Browns. But I think there's a discernible swagger that the Ravens have regained, and I think that'll show. I think they're going to ride this momentum through the divisional round and exercise their playoff demons against the Titans.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think the Baltimore Ravens do squeak this one out. I think it's going to be a close contest. I think it's, again, going to be a lot of fun to watch. The thing is, and like I mentioned with the blueprint to beat the Ravens need to not divert from the run too soon. Let's say they go down 2 scores, because we all know that Derrick Henry can score pretty much at any point in time if he just kind of gets ahead of steam. So if they do go down a couple scores, stick to the run, stick to what you know you can do well, and I think they can beat the Tennessee Titans this Sunday at 105.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement there. So long as the Ravens stick to the script, they do just seem to be the hotter team right now. I think I'll favor them to move on and probably likely meet Kansas City next week, but we'll get there when we get there. Another team hopeful for an upset bid. I don't necessarily have as much confidence in them to get one. The 7-seed Chicago Bears, 8-8, will go into New Orleans, take on the number 2 seed New Orleans Saints. What do you think? Are the Bears going to get smacked around here, or do they have any shot?
So before I even talk about any of that, the most noteworthy part of this game is it's going to be aired on Nickelodeon. I had to look at my TV twice to kind of make sure that I wasn't just hallucinating. No, this game will be played and aired on Nickelodeon, also CBS. But why the hell would you watch CBS when you could watch a football game on Nickelodeon? Like, are we serious here? It's going to be so much fun. Ah, man. It depends on how healthy the Saints are. Michael Thomas is expected to be back. Alvin Kamara is questionable. I know that if the game were to be played on Saturday, he would have been out because of COVID. I guess it just depends on when his last negative test is and symptoms or what have you. If the Saints have their full complement of weaponry, I don't think this one is going to be very close. The Chicago Bears, it's been a fun story, I guess. Mitch Trubisky, maybe you root for him a little bit. David Montgomery's my guy. I like that dude. And obviously Khalil Mack on the defensive side of the ball and Akeem Hicks. But man, the Saints are really good. There's a reason that they were fighting down to the bitter end with the Green Bay Packers for a buy-in for home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, you tend to think they might overwhelm the Bears, even if a guy like Kamara, tomato, even if Kamara does miss time, I think he'll be back. But even if he does miss time, Michael Thomas is expected back. And even with neither of those 2 weeks, seeing the Saints have an onslaught of weaponry, you forget about guys, but there's then an ever-present group of guys making plays, whether it's Jared Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, Latavius Murray, Taysom Hill. They seem to just manufacture weaponry like few teams in the league can. David Montgomery, Allen Robinson, both played above their heads all year, kept the Bears above water. Admirable to get to this point. I do think, and I have a note in here, so I do think it's worth mentioning that the 7 seed did not, in my opinion, water down the playoffs in any way. The number 4 seed Washington football team would still have made it with 6 seeds. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Miami Dolphins, 10-6 in the AFC, still wouldn't have made it in with 6 seeds, let alone open it up to 7. So there's still going to be cases like this. It's not a detriment to an extra seed. It leads to more football. That is always a plus. We here at We Like Football will advocate for more football all the time. Sorry, I got a little too far off on my tangent. Let me pivot back here. Saints will roll. They're simply too good. Ever-present playmakers offensively, and then defensively, Demario Davis, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Marcus Williams, Trey Hendrickson, Cameron Jordan. Just a wagon on both sides of the ball. The Bears, no chance. Let's talk about the fun stuff. We're on Nickelodeon. You mentioned that. I have a few questions in here. Should we watch on Nickelodeon? You answered that.
I already answered that one. Absolutely. I will 1000% be watching it on Nickelodeon and be locked in, folks. I don't even care what else I have going on Sunday. It's going to wait until after this game that I can watch on Nickelodeon.
Slime Time Live. Would you rather slime Mike Singletary or Mike Ditka?
I am sliming the hell out of Ditka. I think Singletary might get a little bit more angry. Like, that dude is always like eyes wide open. Like, I want to see everything, and it might burn a little bit when it gets in there. I just think it'd be so much fun to watch Ditka try to get the slime out of his mustache.
Alvin Kamara, could he scale the aggro crag?
What the hell is the aggro crag? I have no idea what the aggro crag. I swear you're just making it up. I swear you're just making it up.
You are shameful. I don't know what you did in the 90s. The aggro crag is the pinnacle of athletic achievements. To scale the aggro crag on Nickelodeon's Guts, which was in syndication from September 19th, 1992 until January 14th of 1996. Yes, I just know that offhand. Thank you. To scale the aggro crag makes you a peak, elite, pinnacle athletic competitor. It's next to nothing. You're an idiot. I hate you. Don't Google it. Your moment's passed.
I had to. It's like it looks like just a rock climbing wall, I guess.
Anyway, sure. Alvin Kamara, I'll answer this one since you are unqualified. Alvin Kamara could score 20 touchdowns, maybe 30 touchdowns. He could not scale the aggro crag. Taysom Hill, is he charismatic enough to host all that?
I would say so. Yeah, that dude is a lot of fun to watch. He certainly has a nice smile and a charming way about him. So I would say so.
All right. Lastly, could Akeem Hicks figure it out with Summer Sanders?
Well, I guess it's time for you to scold me a little bit more because like I said before, before the show, I have no idea what the hell that means. I have no idea.
Look, I don't even. You're hopeless. There's no scolding. I'm not going to work myself up. because I'm going to be angsty for another week yet waiting for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns to kick off. That's the last game on Super Wild Card Weekend. That's the last game we're going to talk about here in these playoffs until the next round, of course. I guess I will lead the way if you don't mind.
I was assuming that that's how we would do things. Yep.
Okay. So in a rematch from Week 17, the number 6 seed Cleveland Browns earned their way into the playoffs with a home win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 24-22 this past week. They'll venture to Pittsburgh to rematch the AFC North champion Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The Steelers should roll. All things being equal, the Steelers should roll. They lost by just 2 points with Mason Rudolph starting. I think if Mason Rudolph had a full complement of talent around him offensively, defensively, I think the Steelers would beat a playoff-bound Browns team in a relevant game with Rudolph under center. What are you writing down there?
Oh, we both took the Saints, I'm guessing, in the last game. I just wanted to make sure I got it down to make sure. I'm not stealing your shine or doing any math problems while you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So there are again, the Steelers aren't totally out of the woods. I don't want to write off the Browns. What they did this year is not inconsiderable to make the playoffs for the first time in almost 2 decades, to go 11-5, and to vanquish a Steelers team led largely by backups, but in a game that we've so often come to expect the Browns to lose. They showed they are on the up and up. Baker Mayfield does appear to be the right guy under center. Yet I tend to think it's too soon. Pittsburgh is welcoming back a lot of veteran talent, a lot of guys with playoff experience this week. That should make a difference. Big Ben, I have a note in here, is 27 career games against the Browns. Ben Roethlisberger, 24-2-1. He's thrown for over 6,000 yards, 41 touchdowns in those games. Comparison, Baker Mayfield, 5 games against the Steelers, 2-3. Actually better than I expected. Statistically, nothing to write home about. 5 games, 884 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He has been sacked 16 times. Does deserve mentioning. Both wins that Baker Mayfield has against the Steelers came in games that Ben Roethlisberger missed. I believe Mason Rudolph was his counterpart in both of those outings. Again, Browns, I like the trajectory they're on. Kevin Stefanski looks to be the right guy. They have a good running game, and I do think they're going to give Pittsburgh a fight. I don't think this is going to be a runaway game as it was when the Steelers knocked the Browns around 38-7 in October, but I think the injection of talent, Big Ben, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Marquise Pouncey, not to mention maybe getting guys like Robert Spillane back in the mix. I just think Pittsburgh does have the playoff experience, the veteran savvy, the know-how, like Tomlin and everybody else, to just kind of take care of business here, get back on the right track. We saw their offense start to figure things out. Young playmakers making plays. Defense continues to make plays. That'll all continue. I just not yet for Cleveland. Pittsburgh is going to go on to the buzzsaw that is the Buffalo Bills and see if they can keep rolling, or if they're going to be a one and out team this year.
Yep, and you bring up experience. We noted already. This is the Browns' first playoff berth since 2002. It's been 18 years. The experience with the Steelers might come into play. You also brought up Kevin Stefanski. It's worth noting that Kevin Stefanski tested positive for COVID-19 today. So special teams coordinator Mike Priefer will serve as the Browns head coach on Sunday when they face the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that is notable. What's also notable is Tom Wolf, the governor of Pennsylvania, who everybody on my timelines, because I grew up in Pennsylvania, everybody on my timeline seems to like that guy and think that he's a great dude and is really for the people. He had some COVID restrictions that were lifted yesterday. So Pittsburgh is expected to have some fans in the stands. The capacity is still unknown, but there was a story out by CBS Pittsburgh that said that there will be fans in the stands, or at least that it's expected at Heinz Field for this weekend. Weather is 27 and partly cloudy. There's not a whole lot of weather this weekend that's going to impact the football games. It will be interesting to see what happens when the Steelers do have their full complement of weaponry. Again, you mentioned that they rested a lot of guys last week when the Steelers played the Browns and lost by only 2 points. It will be interesting to see which Steelers team comes out. I understand how they have somewhat turned things around, but the Steelers that we saw a couple weeks ago are not so far distant that it's okay to kind of put that out of our heads. And hopefully Big Ben is able to kind of come back and show that he is still the dude that can make things happen, especially in the playoffs. It's worth noting that Eric Ebron and Joe Hayden are not expected to play this weekend. I believe it's COVID. I think Joe Hayden was one of the names with COVID.
Hayden tested positive. I believe Ebron was deemed to be a close contact of his. I don't think there's been any update on Ebron. If he hasn't tested positive, I do believe that he'll be able to play. Joe Hayden is already ruled out because he tested positive. And like you said, there is a 10-day period from positive test, which his just falls in. So that is a big blow. Ebron, they will hopefully get back. On the other side of the ball, the Browns, too, are facing some injuries. Olivier Vernon tore his Achilles in the Week 17 matchup with Pittsburgh. That's a big blow. Denzel Ward was on the COVID list. I believe his status is still in question. It would hurt if they can't get him back. And then Stefanski, as you said, obviously huge. I imagine he'll still have some input in the game plan, but being away physically from a team as a head coach, that's tough to do at that capacity. That is going to be tough. Will be interesting to see how the Browns rebound from that. As you said, Pittsburgh, we can't rule out slow starts, pour out, like sloppy play, the kind that we saw pretty much all through December until the second half of that Colts game when they switched gears. I think, as we've said, just that veteran acumen, that know-how, Big Ben, Mike Tomlin, they tend to know how to switch that or flip that playoff switch. I think we will see that, especially playing against a Browns team, a division rival, a team they certainly won't want to drop a playoff game to. It would be the Browns' first playoff win in decades. I know that. Another possible reason for motivation, I don't want to babble on about the Steelers endlessly. I could, but we are up against it, as we tend to be by this time. So another conversation point I have here we'll touch on quick. Could be motivation for Pittsburgh, could not be. I don't know. I just wanted to get your thoughts. The Browns mocked Juju's now infamous TikTok dance post-game. I think Mac Wilson, Cleveland linebacker, did on Instagram, chirped about wearing a mask as well. There was a whole thing about that. Is that anything, or is that much ado about nothing?
I can't imagine that it's going to have any sort of impact. I know that there was, like, before Cincinnati's game, when Juju danced on the logo and then got hit, and they kind of went hand in hand or something. That's not something that I ever buy. They're professional athletes. They're going to go out and have the same kind of motivation, whether somebody dances on the internet or not. I don't think that that's going to have so much of an impact. It will be fun to watch. AFC North games are often fun to watch, especially when we're talking about the Browns, Steelers, and Ravens. I mean, they always kind of come out and put on a show. Both teams are going to be emotionally charged up for it, so it should be a fun way to end what will seemingly be a great weekend for football. Shifting gears a little bit from the playoffs to another type of playoff, the college football playoffs started this weekend, Friday on New Year's Day. We got the Rose Bowl with Alabama and Notre Dame. We got the Sugar Bowl with Clemson and Ohio. I feel like most folks anticipated that Alabama would be beating Notre Dame, especially since Notre Dame lost to Clemson in that ACC championship game a couple weeks ago. From that game, so Alabama won at 31-14. Mac Jones went 25 out of 30 for 297 yards and 4 touchdowns. I was hoping to get an update about the Heisman while we were doing this. I have not gotten one yet, so I don't know if the award has been given out. We do this on a Tuesday night. Tonight is the awards for college football. Also in that game, Najee Harris had 15 carries, 25 yards, and Andy, give him the news.
Breaking Devontae Smith, Alabama Crimson Tide wide receiver, wins the Heisman. 105 receptions, 1,641 yards, 20 touchdowns this year. There's my speaker going off. We'll disregard that again. 1,641 yards, 20 touchdowns. Congratulations on the Heisman. Well done, Devontae. Roll Tide.
Well, he actually was the only other person that I had to talk about from that Rose Bowl game. Devontae Smith, the Heisman now, had 7 receptions for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. The dude looks like he's going to be legit. I know that some folks are a little concerned with his size, but what he's doing at Alabama, he looks like his talents will translate to the next level, seemingly in the top 10 of the NFL draft this year, at least with all the mock drafts. But of course, there haven't been any combines or anything where stocks can fly up or whatever. But congratulations to Devontae Smith.
Yeah, certainly a big game on a big stage. Well deserved. Possible future Eagle.
I have seen that. I have seen Jamar Chase in some mock drafts as well. I see the Trey Lances in there in the mock drafts, and I'm like, if they draft another North Dakota State quarterback, I have nothing against Carson Wentz, but like there has to be a sign, like a big sign, like, hey, you tried it, it didn't work. Let's just not.
Or let's take another 30-year-old guard who moonlights as a firefighter, whatever that one was. Cousin Danny, we're not going to get hung up on him. We'll talk about the other game here, the All-State Sugar Bowl. Ohio State Buckeyes roll the Clemson Tigers 49-28. Justin Fields outdueled Trevor Lawrence on a big stage, 22-28, 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, an additional 42 yards on the ground. But Trey Sermon, the workhorse in that backfield, continued to roll. 31 carries, 193 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches for 61 yards. Buckeyes, much like the Eagles, are a quarterback factory. The Buckeyes are a running back factory. They continue to produce outstanding backs. Sermon, no exception. We'll see him playing on Sunday sooner than later. On the opposite side, Trevor Lawrence, not a bad outing, 33 of 48, 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, another one on the ground. Trevor Lawrence will turn his sights to the NFL. We'll be talking about him plenty more in the future, as we will his backfield mate, Travis Etienne. Another fantastic back, put up 137 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown in this one. But as I said, Ohio State rolled, advances to the College Football National Championship. Will they square off with Alabama? 2 blue blood programs, 2 classes of college football. Looking forward to that one.
Yep, going on this upcoming Monday at 8 p.m. It was worth noting that Justin Fields did get shaken up in the second quarter, had a rib injury after a targeting call, was just visibly in pain for the rest of the game. But again, to come out and kind of outduel Trevor Lawrence. I've seen some things now about how Justin Fields is now QB1, where Trevor Lawrence is QB2. I don't necessarily buy that, but it will be fun to kind of watch and see them be compared as we approach April with the NFL draft. So that's what we got for football for today. We had a couple start one, sit one, cut ones for our game to kind of end it here, but we cut out all the football stuff because we've certainly talked a whole lot about football today. So with our start one, sit one, cut one for today, I have some death scenarios. I actually put this poll up on Twitter. We are still getting results in from it, so I'm interested to see it. It's open for the rest of the night. I'm interested to see where it ends up. But our death scenarios, Andy. So the first one is being attacked by a rogue circus bear. The second one is drowning in a dunk tank at a carnival. And the third one is being mistaken for a deer in the woods during archery season. So I will ask you first, my friend. Start one, sit one, cut one.
To me, it's all fairly simple. I can't imagine how people are making it into anything more complex than it is. I would never, ever want to be mistaken for a deer. They're gangly, almost feminine, stupid creatures. It's not about the pain of...
Go on. I'm interested.
It's not about the pain of taking an arrow. It's not about that. It's not about the means of death. It's merely about being mistaken for a deer. I am simply too bulky to masculine, your paragon of virtue, if you will, to be mistaken for a flowery, pleasant little fawn, if you will. So not for me. I will never ever be mistaken for a deer in a million years. Cut that one. Now, next, we're gonna sit one that's in essence, get out of here. Sorry. I apologize.
I should add death by girlfriend to this just in case we keep it up. Go ahead. So you're cutting being mistaken for a deer. Let's go to sit.
Couldn't be me. I will be sitting, drowning in a dunk tank at a carnival, because that is essentially my second best option. It will be unpleasant for me, yeah, but I imagine it will bring a lot of joy to bystanders. That's important to me. I'm something of a showman. I want to make people laugh. I want to entertain people. That's why we have this platform here that we do, so we can talk about these things and entertain the masses as we do. So secondly, I will drown in the dunk tank, but that, of course, is not the number one headliner option. That is, of course, being attacked by a rogue circus bear. That is the most badass way to go. It's essentially I'm Bear Grylls, I'm Steve Irwin, I'm a hero, I'm a legend. People will talk about me and my fight with that rogue circus bear forever. Easy start, attacked by a circus bear, no question.
I should have known with a show that I start about you going to eat pizza and curl other people's dumbbells that it would come back to your death scenario coming down to you not being just massive and bulky. I set myself up for that one. It is what it is. That was my bad to anybody who's listening. Okay, so for me, the one that I'm going to cut, the one that I think is the worst, is drowning in a dunk tank at a carnival. I just feel like drowning, you feel so helpless. And it's a longer kind of process. Like you have to sit there and of course you're trying to get out. I don't know what circumstance has you, stuck down in the dunk tank, but it's just got to be so much terror. And then you know how the dunk tank always has like that window on the front where you can see out. So you're watching people watch you just take your last breath, so to speak, even though you're underwater. I'm cutting that one. I don't want to drown. I think that so between the attacked by a rogue circus bear and mistaken for a deer in the woods during archery season, I think it's kind of how I would want my final minute to kind of go. So I guess I'll be dainty here and just a cute little Bambi look-alike deer, which is fine with me. I'm very comfortable with who I am. But I feel like when you're shot with an arrow, there's that initial shock, but then you have time to kind of like go prop yourself up on a tree and just kind of think about your life and everything that's happened throughout it. So that might be a more fun way to go than just the sheer panic of being attacked by a bear to death. I feel like that one's going to go on the bench. I'm going to start getting shot by an arrow during deer season. I am cutting drowning in a dunk tank. It's nice when we don't have the same opinions and we can kind of spice it up a little bit. We are certainly out of time. So, buddy, we don't have time for anything else. That's Andy Watkins. I am Hayden Yerishunas. We like football.
We like football.